All right, today we're going to talk about how defects can affect ceramic strength and toughness, and then we're also going to look at ways in which we can toughen or strengthen materials as well. All right, so in the first section here, I want to talk about processing and some of the things that can cause flaws during processing. So this is why I've mentioned before, and I'll probably mention several times, that processing is very important to ceramics. It is in metals and polymers as well, but the fact that processing can introduce so many defects makes them particularly important here. And so I just want to run through some of the types of flaws that we can experience during processing and the effect they have on ceramics. And then we'll go into how we can sort of mitigate these factors. All right, so the types of flaws that we can introduce are porosity. We've talked about this in glass, in the context of glass. Inclusions, so these are like secondary phases that shouldn't be there. We can also have agglomerates and large grains, and we can also have surface flaws. So we'll go kind of step by step with these. All right, porosity. So we've talked about porosity before. This could be from the sintering process, so not enough of the empty space is removed. It could be from in glass formation if there's bubbles left over. This can all be what causes pores. But two things that really a pore will do. So obviously, if you have a pore, the cross-sectional area is reduced. This isn't a huge factor, as you know, if we kind of take a look at this plot here, the densities that we're talking about are typically, above 90% dense. And so we have pores, but there's not a huge amount of pores, and so it doesn't really affect the cross-sectional area by having that empty space there. The bigger issue is the one that we've talked about, in particularly last class, is stress concentration. Since we have a bubble, some type of shape, usually a sphere, that will put stress concentration on the edges of the pore. And so this will act as a stress concentration, and therefore the strength will decrease. So this basically just shows us flexural strength as a function of density. So 100% dense would obviously be zero porosity. And then as we decrease, we'd have more and more porosity. So the strength really decreases as a function of this. So you can see at 90% dense, it's basically halved the strength of this test. So that's drastic. And so they have a huge effect on strength and other properties as well. All right, so inclusions. So these are secondary phases. Just again, different phases that may occur in this material during processing. So either impurities or from the heat treatment, if you have a particular type of heat treatment at a too high of a temperature or held for too long or something, you may get a secondary phase develop. So the big issue with a secondary phase is that it's different than the what we'd call the matrix, so the main material. And so that difference can cause differences in structure and so forth, and therefore you can have differences in the thermal expansion coefficient that I've sort of abbreviated TEC. You might see it different, listed in different ways, but basically the thermal expansion coefficient is what these can be different. And so here we're representing that as alpha. Excuse me. So this can go by a number of different terms, but I'll use alpha here. And so the two cases that we could have in this, so don't worry too much about actually calculating these stresses that develop. But what I really want you to be able to see is that if my inclusion, if its thermal expansion coefficient is less than the matrix, what this will end up doing in this equation is have a large tangential tensile stress develops. And so what that causes is it will cause radial cracks in the matrix material. So that's obviously not great. If the inclusion is, the thermal expansion coefficient is larger than the matrix, then this inclusion can actually kind of detach from the material and produce, again, more like a pore. So either way, it's not great. And so this is often an issue with ceramics and multi-layered ceramics as well, is that trying to match the thermal expansion coefficient if these materials are going to be heated and cooled is one of the most difficult parts, is trying to match these. So that's an effect that the inclusions can have, is this difference in thermal expansion, which can either cause stress cracks, or it could detachment and cause a pore-like flaw. All right. So some other things that can happen are agglomerates. And so what an agglomerate is sort of a collection of particles during the sintering process. And so what this does is this sort of collection of particles in the sintering process can actually result in rapid densification if they act different than the rest of the material. And so that rapid densification that occurs in that one localized area can result in voids and cracks from that difference in sintering in that one location. And so this is where processing comes in, is that we want to try to avoid sort of agglomerates or clusters of particles stuck together. So this could be like kind of think of it as a clump in the green part, if you're thinking in the lab and what we did with manufacturing ceramics, is we want to try to remove clusters of particles, and so we want a really nice, continuous, free-flowing powder that doesn't sort of stick together and form these agglomerates. So this can result in these voids and cracks. All right. Another thing that can happen if we have this sort of exaggerated grain growth, so it could be caused by agglomerates, or it could just be caused by other factors, but large grains can grow. So we can have sort of an abnormally large grains to grow. So this isn't necessarily a bad thing. There's actually some advantages in certain cases for large grains, but one of the biggest issues would be, let's say we have a non-cubic system. And so in that non-cubic system, if large grains grow, they tend to be anisotropic. And so we tend to get these sort of unique shapes. So in this case, we got like kind of a rod shape, right? And so that means that it'll act differently in different directions, and it could affect the thermal expansion, just like we saw with inclusions. And so that can degrade strength as well. And so any sort of like anomaly, large grains, sort of atypical shapes, this could result in issues with the modulus, thermal expansion, because of this anisotropy. So that's one issue that we can have with these large grains. All right, so this is also a big one, surface flaws. So from surface flaws, this could be one thing we have to consider here is the grain size. So on the surface, it's very easy to have flaws. They can happen from a number of factors. And so here's just kind of a schematic of showing these if a flaw on the surface develops. So it can happen either between the grain boundary, along the grain boundaries, or it can happen within the grain, so kind of a cleavage of the grain structure. So it can be inter or transgranular. So those are kind of the two options. But one thing that you'll notice, and we'll talk about this actually in the next section, is, so imagine we have a crack along this boundary. Well, at this point, when it reaches this junction, it has to change directions. And so that change of direction takes energy. And so what we find about surface flaws is they tend to be proportional to the grain diameter. So this crack is kind of stuck at this location because of the grain size. Same thing here. If we have a cleavage crack within the grain, it's once it reaches the grain boundary, it would again have to change directions to expand that crack. And so they are, for the most part, limited to the size of the grain. So if we have so what this tells us is if we have really large grains, this gives us the potential for really large surface flaws, and vice versa. So if we have a really small grain structure, then our surface flaws tend to be much smaller, and so that's obviously beneficial. And so exaggerated grain growth can affect in that way. So one of the ways that we can get rid of surface flaws or try to reduce their effects are by decreasing the grain size. So that's one way. So I've also kind of listed some of the causes for these surface flaws. So one of them is high temperature grain boundary grooving. So if we imagine a surface, so let's say we have a polished surface. And so if we heat it up, because of the grain boundary energy, there actually tends to be a little groove that's developed in between the grains along the grain boundary. And so that groove is a surface flaw, right? And so that could start the process of forming a crack. So that's one issue. Also, during our process of manufacturing and processing, a lot of times after fabrication, we have to machine, and that act of machining can introduce surface flaws. Accidental damage, so if you drop it or mishandle it, so that's what this little guy over here is showing. So any sort of damage, just accidental, that can be an issue. Grinding and polishing, right? That's more or less what we're doing, is creating surface flaws with grinding and polishing. So we're trying to remove them, but in the process we do introduce surface flaws. So there's a lot of ways we can get surface flaws, and it's very difficult to remove all of them. All right, so this is just a graph showing you what I talked about previously, is that these flaws tend to scale with the grain size, and not just surface flaws, but also interior ones as well. And so here it's plotted in a little bit different way, but grain size to the -1/2. And it's done so because if we look at that fracture toughness equation, that's has that square root factor. So that's kind of why we're plotting it in this unique way. So if we plot grain size this way versus strength, we see that with increasing grain size, so that's this direction, we see that initially the strength is relatively stable, but at a certain point the strength really drops as the grain size increases. And so if we want to increase strength, then we're going to go the opposite way, and we're trying to refine or reduce the grain size. All right, so we talked about a lot of these surface flaws, and previously we've actually already talked excuse me, in the glass section about how to overcome some of these surface flaws. And one of those techniques was to introduce a compressive stress. So we've talked about how ceramics are stronger in compression than tension, mode 1 effectively. And so if we can introduce compressive stresses, we can basically clamp down on those mode 1 type fractures, and that's a way to stop it. So a way to stop is basically to introduce a compressive stress on the surface. And so we talked about ways in glasses that we can do this: thermal tempering, ion exchanging, and so forth. So a lot of those will apply to general ceramics as well. So one way is we could use the previous factor that we talked about, so differences in thermal expansions. So if we incorporate an outer layer with a lower thermal expansion, this can give us that compressive stress. We could also have some type of phase transformation that causes compression. We can have a physical or ion implantation, so basically bombarding the surface with larger ions or atoms. And then we could also do ion exchange, like the subject of our lab. So there's lots of ways that work for glasses and also ceramics. Excuse me. One last point I wanted to sort of make about this is the effect of temperature. So elevated temperatures have kind of a dual nature. So we can elevated temperatures can actually strengthen ceramics in some cases, but also in other cases weaken ceramics. All right, so let's think of a couple examples here. So let's say we have silicon nitride waveguide. So that's what this here is. It's basically a fiber optic cable. If we heat this thing up at higher temperatures in sort of normal air atmosphere, that corrosive environment would basically create a silicon oxide layer on the outside. And so this would basically be a protective surface layer that would protect the interior layers. And so oxidation can sometimes result in passivating or protective surface layers. That's what happens with aluminum and the aluminum oxide on its surface. But also, a corrosive environment could also attack the surface and create corrosion pits in some ways as well. And so that could decrease the strength by creating flaws. So you can kind of see here a pit, which is obviously going to be a stress concentration factor in the material. Another sort of complicating issue with temperature is that, and we'll see this in sintering, but sometimes when we are sintering material, we actually create a glassy phase in between the grain boundaries. So there's actually this phase, what they're trying to show here in black, is actually a glass. And so if we heat this material up above that glass transition temperature, then that would soften it, and that would allow this phase and these grain boundaries to move around, and therefore it would decrease strength as well. So temperature is kind of a complex factor to look at when we think about strengthening, weakening, toughening a material. And so we have to consider environment, we have to consider what the material is, potential oxidizing or passivating layers that can form, and if we have glassy phases. And that's just a couple. So, all right. So we'll come back and look at the next section, which is to how do we toughen these ceramic materials.